Welcome to my channel, The Human Frontier. The first time humans were invited into the Crystal Dominion, we were told one rule above all others: never offer anything to the Queen unless she asks for it.
No one explained why.
I was only a logistics officer assigned to the diplomatic escort mission, not someone important enough to know the deeper reasons. My job was simple: carry equipment, monitor supplies, and stay quiet while ambassadors discussed trade routes with beings who had once considered humanity little more than an emerging species. Still, I had something none of the others carried: a small metal canteen of earth water. It wasn't ceremonial or symbolic. I simply disliked the mineral-rich liquids served aboard alien stations, and human physiology still responded best to the water we were born with. No one had objected when I packed it. After all, who would think a simple drink could matter? I learned the answer the moment the Queen noticed it. The Crystal Dominion's capital floated in orbit around a violet gas giant. Its towers formed from translucent mineral structures that shimmered with inner light. When we entered the Grand Hall, the ceiling stretched so high it seemed like another sky. Alien nobles stood in silent rows, their crystalline skin reflecting faint rainbows across the polished floor. At the far end of the hall sat the Queen. She wasn't monstrous or terrifying. In fact, her form was almost elegant, tall, slender, with faintly glowing lines running across her pale blue skin like living constellations. A crown of branching crystal rose from her head, shifting slowly as though alive. Her eyes were completely silver, reflective like mirrors. Even the ambassadors, people trained never to show fear, moved more carefully in her presence. Negotiations began smoothly. Trade agreements, navigation rights, research exchanges, every sentence translated perfectly through the hovering linguistic drones. Hours passed without tension. If anything, the meeting seemed unusually calm for first contact diplomacy. Then the heat of the chamber began to rise. The Dominion preferred warmer atmospheric settings than humans did, and my throat felt like sandpaper. Without thinking much about it, I quietly opened my pack and took out my canteen. I didn't stand, didn't speak, just unscrewed the lid and took a small drink. That was when the hall fell silent. Not gradually. Instantly. I didn't understand why until I looked up and realized every noble in the chamber was staring directly at me. And the Queen was watching the canteen. Her voice came softly, yet it echoed everywhere. "Human," she said, "what liquid do you carry?" I froze. Diplomatic protocol ran through my mind like alarms. I hadn't spoken out of turn. I hadn't interrupted negotiations. I had simply taken a sip of water. "Just water, Your Majesty," I replied carefully. From Earth, a ripple moved through the assembled nobles. Some shifted backward. Others leaned forward as though witnessing something dangerous. The Queen rose from her throne. Even the ambassadors looked startled. One of them gave me a quick warning glance that clearly meant do not move unless she commands it. The Queen descended the long steps toward me, her crystalline crown glimmering brighter with each step. "You drink it safely?" she asked. "Yes, Your Majesty." "And it belongs to your world alone?" "It's chemically similar to most natural water sources," I said, unsure why the explanation suddenly felt important. "But yes, this batch is from Earth." She stopped only an arm's length away. "May I see it?" No one had warned me what to do if the Queen herself asked for something. Technically, she had requested it, which meant protocol allowed compliance. Still, the tension in the room suggested something far more serious was happening. I handed her the canteen. Her long fingers wrapped around the metal container, studying it as though it were a relic. She lifted it slightly, watching the droplets slide along the inner rim. The hall was completely silent now. Even the translation drones hovered, without movement. One of the Dominion nobles suddenly spoke, his voice sharp with alarm. "Your Majesty, it is untested. Foreign biological compounds." She raised one hand, and he fell silent immediately. Then she did something no one expected.
She drank.
It wasn't a dramatic action, just a single, measured sip. Yet the moment the water touched her lips, something changed. The faint light running across her skin brightened, spreading outward in branching patterns like lightning frozen beneath crystal. Her silver eyes widened slightly, not in pain, but in surprise. For a few seconds she stood perfectly still, as though listening to something no one else could hear. Every guard in the hall tensed. I wondered if I had just accidentally poisoned an alien monarch. Then the queen exhaled slowly. "Astonishing," she whispered. The glow along her skin slowly dimmed back to normal. She looked down at the canteen again, almost thoughtfully, before returning it to me. "Human water," she said, "is uniquely structured." The nobles exchanged uneasy glances. One stepped forward. "Your Majesty, are you unharmed?" "I am more than unharmed," she replied calmly. "I am stabilized." That word sent a visible wave of shock through the chamber. Later, I learned the truth. The ruling bloodline of the Crystal Dominion suffered from something known as resonance decay. Their crystalline physiology required precise molecular alignment within their internal structures, and over time, that alignment slowly destabilized. Advanced technology could delay the process, but nothing truly halted it. Eventually, every ruler weakened, their light dimming until a successor took the throne. But Earth's water, formed under our planet's unique magnetic and biological conditions, contained a molecular resonance pattern unusually compatible with their crystalline biology. For the first time in centuries, the Queen's internal resonance had briefly strengthened instead of weakening. And she had discovered it because a random human soldier happened to be thirsty. Negotiations changed immediately. Not publicly. Diplomacy always hides its turning points behind formal language, but the atmosphere shifted. Where earlier discussions had been cautious and calculated, now they carried a subtle urgency. Research agreements expanded. Scientific exchange proposals multiplied. Entire teams of Dominion scholars requested access to Earth hydrology databases. Through it all, the Queen occasionally glanced in my direction, as though confirming I was still there. At the end of the session, just before the delegations prepared to leave, she spoke again. "Human officer," she said, "approach." Every ambassador turned to look at me. I walked forward, trying not to look as nervous as I felt. "You carried this water for personal use?" she asked. "Yes, Your Majesty." "You did not intend it as an offering?"
No.
A faint smile appeared on her lips, subtle, but unmistakable. "Then your kindness was accidental," she said. "Those are often the most valuable." I expected that to be the end of it. Instead, the Queen made an announcement that stunned both delegations. "A permanent human liaison will remain within the Crystal Dominion," she declared. Not an ambassador, but a direct scientific representative. Cooperation between our peoples has entered a new stage. She looked directly at me, and the one who revealed this discovery will assist in guiding it. I blinked. Your Majesty, I'm not a scientist. You're the one who carried the answer, she replied. That is qualification enough to begin. The ambassadors exchanged hurried whispers, but none objected. Everyone understood what had just happened. A random moment had created a diplomatic breakthrough no negotiation strategy could have planned. Weeks passed as joint research began. Samples of Earth water were studied, synthesized, modified, and replicated under Dominion laboratory conditions. While artificial versions showed promise, none matched the stabilizing effect of naturally formed Earth water exactly, suggesting environmental formation played a role still not fully understood. During that time, I saw the Queen several times. She was never informal, royalty rarely is, but her tone with me was noticeably different from how she addressed others. One evening, during a private research briefing, she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Human," she said, "why did you not hesitate when I asked for the water?" I shrugged slightly. "You asked politely. That is all. And you looked curious, not threatening." She studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Among my people, rulers are often feared too much to be seen clearly," she said. You saw clearly. Months later, the first joint Earth Dominion research station was officially opened. Trade between our worlds increased rapidly, and what had begun as cautious diplomacy evolved into genuine alliance discussions. Historians would later describe the turning point in many complicated ways: technological necessity, strategic partnership, cultural compatibility. But those of us who had been there knew the simpler truth. Everything changed because a human soldier took a drink of water in the middle of a long diplomatic meeting. On the anniversary of that first encounter, I was invited once more to the Grand Hall. This time the atmosphere felt different. Less tense, more ceremonial. Delegations from several neighboring systems attended, watching as the Queen formally declared the beginning of what she called the Resonant Alliance. After the ceremony, she approached me privately. "You still carry water from your world?" she asked. I held up the familiar metal canteen. "Always." She nodded, her crystalline crown reflecting the hall's soft light. "Then history continues to travel in very small containers," she said. I smiled. Sometimes the small things matter most. She looked across the hall at the gathered representatives of dozens of species now speaking openly together, something that had been unimaginable only a year earlier. "Yes," she said quietly. "Sometimes a single sip is enough to change the future." Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.